hyperfixation is like a person get hyperfixated on cleaning their room. But cleaning one's room, unless you're Marie Kondo, isn't really a special interest, because it lasts a few hours, sometimes a day or two, and then you're done and you're on to the next activity. Whereas then, like, a special interest is something that basically every time you pick it up, basically you're just constantly doing it. Or if you could have it your way, you would constantly be doing it. Like spinning, it's like if I could just do a thing for the rest of my life, I would be like just spinning. But I do actually really like fashion design and would like to make some more things. BB says, that is so relatable. Hyperfixations can totally end up making me feel bad when it sucks up my entire life. Absolutely. But also, if you don't give yourself the time to hyperfixate, if you're the kind of person who does, it can also be really unhealthy. I used to work in kitchens, and I would have days when the only thing I can think about is like, I need to make this thing that I have in my head that I'm hyperfixated on, right? Like, it was torture to go to work when my hyperfixation was at home. And I couldn't, it's not like a desk job where I can bring my knitting to it or something. It's like I would love to be like a secretary or work in like a convenience store or something like that, where I can bring my knitting and then put my knitting down to interact with the customer and then pick it back up when service is slow. But I would be in the kitchen and we would have slow service, and I would be standing there in the kitchen waiting for my next job, or like cleaning something, and I would be like, why am I here? I want to hyperfixate. Silvani says, I get a lot done in terms of other crafts when sock madness is going on, because the pace is roughly one round every 2 weeks. Okay. I think it takes me like 20 hours to finish a pair of socks. I'm not sure. I haven't timed myself recently. I could be misremembering what my timing was. It could be 40 hours, actually. It could be 20 hours for a single sock. Well, either it takes 20 or 40 hours, which is a huge difference. I think I said it takes like 5 days. So that's probably, I don't know, like, takes 5 days of like a decent amount of knitting time. That doesn't really help either. Silvani, you said it takes you 25 to 30 hours from start to finish. I am talking about like a vanilla sock as well. Like nothing fancy. Baby says, interesting, I'm definitely more on the spectrum of hyperfixation than special interest, though sometimes they can last like 5 years. Oh, interesting. I think that I'd say that would be a special interest at that point, although it could also just be a regular interest on which one is hyperfixated. Just because you have an interest doesn't make it a special interest. Having a special interest is almost like having an obsession, right? So it's definitely possible to be like, have a special interest on like a celebrity, for example. That's why sometimes autistic people can seem a little creepy or celebrity obsessed, because like that's actually often like a thing that's actually kind of like casual ableism, is to see like an autistic person and be like, oh, you're like obsessed in like a creepy way, right? When you just don't get special interest or hyperfixation. But yeah, like a special interest is really about needing to know and understand everything about a specific thing. So with mine, it started at fashion, branched out to knitting, branched out to spinning, branched out to weaving, so I can pick up extra crafts, but also it's kind of about potentially knowing all the fashion brands, knowing all the different kinds of sewing machine stitches, knowing all the different possible fiber contents, fiber constructions, or fabric constructions, all the different kind of stitches and weaves and everything like that. Like there's a lot of stuff. You could know the history of fashion. Like I've got some interest in historical fashion, so I watched like Bernadette Banner and Rachel Maxey, and they do like vintage historical costuming stuff. And so there is a bunch of stuff where it's like you can branch out, or you can like go kind of smaller, infinitely larger or infinitely smaller or infinitely parallel, right? And that's kind of what a special interest is like knowing everything there is to know about a thing. So Vani, you said I have to go to bed. All right, have a lovely night, Savani. You have an early morning. It was great to catch your stream again. Thank you for streaming and enjoy your evening. Thank you so much, Savani. Thank you for the raid. And we will see you again soon. Have a lovely night and sleep well. Breeby says, true. I have had lots of interests and rotate hyperfixating on them all. Yeah, definitely. Definitely makes sense. Like, yeah, hyperfixations definitely can go on it, but like I think a special interest is really like spinning, but then everything branching out to sheep breeds, different ways of processing, different kind of everything that you can do, right? Historical fashion is really cool. I think something that I really love about fiber arts is that they played a much larger part historically in fashion. Now you set a machine to do it and it does it, right? Obviously that's a simplification, but in the modern world in North America, when you think of like, oh, I want to do fashion design, you don't usually think of the textile part of it, right? You think of the like, okay, so if you're going to do fashion design, where do you get your materials? You get them at the fabric store, right? And I think, but it's like, well, then what, right? Like, that can't be the end of it, right? And so that's kind of what got me down the rabbit hole of like, well, you can make your own fabric on a loom or with needles or with a knitting machine or with felting or with crochet. You can make yarn to use with those things with a spinning wheel, right? Like it kind of goes deeper, right? It's like, and then all that stuff is like, well, we don't do that anymore by hand. We order it from, countries where it's more cheap to manufacture, either because they have a better like factory infrastructure or because they have they underpay their workers or the cost of living is lower there. Hopefully the latter or former. Kind of described it as getting infatuated with things or people really easily. Yeah, and like there's a lot of kind of different reasons for that. I think for a lot of autistic people, definitely for me, it's kind of a safety thing. It's like I know a lot about this thing, therefore, I kind of feel safe in this